Washington Journal continues.
Our next guest is Timothy Snyder. He is a professor of history at Yale University and also the author of the book on tyranny, 20 Lessons from the 20th Century. Tim Snyder, welcome to C-SPAN.
Glad to be here.
Why the focus on this book in this day and age in the 21st century?
Well, it's about the things that we once knew. So we spent the 20th century confronting fascism and then confronting communism. Then 1989 came along and we thought to ourselves, aha, history's over, no need to remember the details. All that's going to happen in the future is going to be good, more globalization, more enlightenment, more prosperity. And of course, that was a big mistake because it opened us up to the very things we thought were in the past. So now, 25 years after 1989, we find ourselves confronted with authoritarianism again, all around the world, but also here at home. So the point of the book is to say, let's relearn from some of the smartest, most effective people who opposed authoritarianism and totalitarianism in the 20th century. Let's see what they can teach us about what we might do today.
And so in part of the book, you wrote about the current system of government we have, a democratic republic, upon laws establishing a system of checks and balances, you write. You also add this saying, we might be tempted to think that our democratic heritage might actually protect us. This is a misguided reflex.
Yeah, it's exactly the opposite of what our constitutional tradition teaches us. The founders set up the Constitution the way they did, with the rule of law and with checks and balances, not because we're perfect, but because we're imperfect. They thought the major danger to the future of their democratic republic would not come from outside the country, but it would come from human nature. And here they're absolutely right. So the moment we say it can't happen here, or that we're an exceptional nation, or that we have democracy in our DNA, we're making the very mistake the founders warned us against. It's the institutions that we have to care about, try to enliven and defend.
And so you gave short lessons on that. Start with the primary one. What's the primary lesson from what we learned about tyranny back in the 20th century, and how do we apply it today?
Okay, well, there are 20, so I'm just going to start with number one, right? Number one is don't obey in advance. Wherever authoritarianism comes from, wherever tyranny comes from, whatever its ideology turns out to be, it's not just a matter of pure power. It's not the special effects on TV. It doesn't overwhelm you right at first. The violence comes later on for the most part. The main thing that we learn is that it depends also on us. Authoritarianism happens because things shift quickly and then people adjust. We're very good at adjusting to new situations. And that's normal. That's good. We need that socially to get along with other people. But it's an instinct which in politics can be very dangerous. If new situations come along and we say, oh, okay, I'll just adjust. Once you adjust, you then can't take the next step back. So lesson number one is don't obey in advance.
And what do we, give us an example from the 20th century, either Hitler or Mussolini or someone like that. What do we, give an example?
Yeah. Basically the entire 20th century teaches this lesson. So if it's 1933, we're looking at the regime change in Germany from a republic to Nazi authoritarianism. In that case, as the regime was changing in early 1933, essentially everyone thought, well, this is temporary, or he won't do all the things he's promised. And therefore, everyone adjusted their expectations, whether it was the citizenry, even the Jews, whether it was the bureaucracy, the civil servants, whether it was the ministers, the conservatives, other people on the right. Everyone adjusted, and by adjusting, they let things happen. Same with communism. When communism comes to Eastern Europe in the 1940s, there's a quick move, there's a coup, something happens fast, and people adjust. They say, aha, okay, well, we can deal with this. It's not going to be so different. And then once they made that move, communism was inevitable.
Our guest is the Helston Professor of History at Yale University and the author of the book on tyranny, 20 Lessons from the 20th Century. You can ask him questions by calling us 202-748-8000 for Democrats, 202-748-8001 for Republicans, and for independents, 202-748-8002. You can also post on our Twitter page at C-SPAN-WJ, and also a conversation takes place on our Facebook page as well at facebook.com/C-SPAN. I found this op-ed because I was fascinated by the title. It says, stop calling Donald Trump a fascist because he's not one. First of all, was this part of an argument in writing this book as far as the current day administration? Other people have said these kind of things and related to the president. Do you make those kind of connections?
Well, okay, first of all, it's absolutely important that we make connections to history in general. Americans have a kind of unfortunate tendency of saying that like history is like it's like an MP3, like if it's not exactly the same each time you hit the button, then you don't care, right? History is not like that. History has resemblances, it has patterns, it has structures. You learn for it not because it repeats perfectly, but you learn from it because it helps you to recognize things that might be dangerous. So in the whole discussion about is he a fascist, is he not a fascist, I think there are certain fascist tendencies. We can talk about that. But more importantly is for us to have the 1930s and 40s before our eyes, so we realize that there is a range of possibility, right? That liberal democracy is not inevitable, that most of the time, in fact, democracies fall apart. So we can talk about that specific question, but the more important thing is that Americans get over this idea that we're somehow outside of the mainstreams of history. We're not. Everything that has happened is a guide to things that might happen to us as well.